Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today what I'm bringing to you guys is a breakdown of the brand new weapon changes that are currently in the May PTR and will be coming to the live servers with the May update. This is the weapon balance changes, things like adjustments and kind of balance tuning that they've done to the different weapons across Eternum. Obviously incorporating the 3v3 arenas into this a little bit as well, as that is the brand new PvP content we will see, but also looking at the knock-on effect that this will have to PvE as well, because of course, if you don't already know, we are receiving the Depths as a brand new mutated expedition, along with 3 new expedition mutation variants, meaning that we're going to have a whole host of new challenges on both the PvE and the PvP front, which is very exciting, but it does mean that these changes are going to significantly impact that. Now, if you are new to the channel and you want to see more New World content, you want to stay up to date with the latest news, events, updates, and kind of patch notes, that sort of stuff, as well as any tips, tricks, guides, and other videos to do with New World, then do make sure you go down below and press the subscribe button with the notification bell on. And if you do go on to enjoy today's video, please do make sure that you drop me a like down below as well, as it massively helps to support my content here on the channel. Without further ado, we're going to jump straight into it. So firstly, we are looking at the Blunderbuss. Now, this one is a big one, with it being the newest addition to the weapons here in Eternum. A lot of players looking at what they have done here, so we're going to jump into this. Firstly, they have adjusted the dodge buffer window for the ADS firing animation to be more consistent with other firing animations. Essentially, they've made it like the musket and like the new version of the bow, so they're all pretty much the same, which is nice. Blunderbuss charges now show correctly when firing while obstructed and returns to the normal reticle. So it does allow you to actually shoot those bullets. You can keep track of the pellets that you have loaded a little bit more easily, which is nice for consistency. They've fixed an issue where the player could become unresponsive if they tried to aim and go prone at the same time with a blunderbuss in hand. Strange little glitch, but that's now been fixed. The Azoth bomb ability fixed a typo in the ability's description. Barbed netting, the ability's visual and description have been updated to make it clear that the debuff being applied is bleeding and not poison. Freedom, this upgrade's speed bonus no longer decays over time. Its duration was reduced though from 3 seconds to 2 seconds to compensate for this. Future planning, this passive now triggers per mortar charge shot instead of on activation. Mortar charge, they have fixed an issue where this ability was incrementing the blood offering curse in mutations too many times in a single use. Splitting grenade, they have fixed an issue which caused a desync when moving immediately after using the ability. And also with splitting grenade, they have fixed an issue where critical hits from this ability would not deal additional damage. So as you can see, mostly with respect to the abilities on this weapon, they have made this much more consistent, kind of fixed up some of the rough edges. But what a lot of you will be expecting to see something on, and what I was expecting to see something on, is the one-shot combo. Now, couple of prefaces to this. Obviously, you need to be in light armor. You do have to have a pretty much full-out attack build, which does in turn mean you are very squishy. But this build is very powerful if people want to do it. However, there's been a lot of people using it in the PTR, and although it is annoying from round to round when you do get one member one shot, usually it is a pretty glass cannon play. In other words, you're going to trade that kill with the person that dies from your team. You're also going to be able to get a kill on the enemy team. So it hasn't actually been too overpowered because people have been basically trading players, and that's one of your DPS. If you've then got a CC and a healer, they're not really going to manage if the other team's got maybe 2 DPSs and you kill one of them and they've also still got a healer or a CC player or something like that. There's a whole host of random combinations of players at the moment, but generally it's not been seen as too good of a play, so it hasn't been horrendous. However, I do know it is a bit of an issue in OPR, that sort of thing, so hopefully we will see that addressed before this May patch goes live. But as of right now, no changes to the way that those abilities work in Fruition, and of course the PTR applies these changes and it's still the same thing there, so we'll wait to see if there's any further additions. The next thing we're looking at here is the bow. Now, this is a really crucial update as it has seen quite a fair amount of work. And actually using this in the PTR, it has been a lot of fun. They've really improved it. They've really made it maybe a little bit almost up to one of those top spots, if not in the top spots of weapons, particularly in the arenas. You're going to see a bow pretty much every single match right now, and that is because it is really good. So the changes they've made here are they have reduced the recovery on the basic attacks, so they're a little bit quicker. They've fixed the ability cancels on basic attacks. They have increased projectile radius on all attacks except penetrating shot. They've added cancel windows to the weapon readying animations. Players can now sprint cancel when lowering the weapon. They have added missing cancel buffers when lowering the weapon. Poison shot and penetrating shot now use the same fire/cancel inputs as rain of arrows. Essentially means these can be cancelled when you're in the process of firing them up, and of course the fire is the same, you have to do it and then click, which makes much more sense. Reduced hipfire startup and recovery, and the increased move speed while hipfiring from 1.65 to 2.25, so actually quite a lot of speed increase there, which again is giving it a huge buff. They've reduced the hipfire multiplier to compensate from this from 0.8 down to 0.6, so obviously it doesn't make it quite as good. Reduced charge shot damage multiplier from 1.7 down to 1.5, but again, 1.5 on a charge shot is still super powerful. They have reduced the charge time and recovery time for charge shots, so therefore you can do slightly higher DPS. The damage overall per shot is going to be a little bit lower, but overall is going to be higher because higher DPS, less charge time, less recovery time, therefore you can get more shots out more consistently. Overall, big buff to damage. And finally, they have reduced the power of the bow's true aim passive from 30% down to 10%. Overall, like I said, the handling of this weapon is hugely increased, and this is actually a real lot of fun to play. If you aren't playing the PTR and you're not planning to jump on before this is released, when the May update does come our way, make sure you do try out the bow, because if you're someone that likes that range style of play, you are really going to like it after this update. It feels super smooth, super fun to use, maybe a little bit too much, I dare say, in some respects, because it is right up there with the top weapons. However, you can obviously counter it, and I do think it deserves to be in that top spot, so for right now, I think the bow's sat at a much better place. Couple more like tuning passes just to make it a little bit more consistent throughout, and we're looking really good with the bow, so this is a fantastic change overall. Next, we're moving on to the fire staff here then, just a couple of things, mainly with the ability side of stuff. So firstly, burnout, they have fixed an issue which caused a desync when moving immediately after using the ability, so again, making it more consistent. Meteor shower, we've seen increased casting range from 15 to 20 meters, and increased damage from 20% to 25% of weapon damage. So, a little bit more range, a little bit more damage. Maybe it's going to be more viable. It's not great in arenas. I have tested this out, and a lot of people thought I was trolling with it. It's not great in there because of the fast-paced close quarters nature. However, OPR, it does seem to be pretty good. Wars, haven't had a chance to try it in yet, but I would imagine, again, it's going to be pretty decent. So I'll keep you guys updated with that one. Then we have Judgment of Helios, which has increased damage from 25% to 30% weapon damage. And finally, Pillar of Fire. This ability now allows movement during casting animation, which is pretty good indeed. It's going to make this ability a lot more viable in a lot of ways, and this is super good in arenas because Pillar of Fire is a really good damage ability. Being able to move while you're casting it is fantastic, so overall Fire Staff, I would say, has been buffed. Next then, looking at the Great Axe. Firstly, we've seen Whirlwind. They have increased the base movement speed while spinning from 3 to 3.5. Gusting Winds, they have increased the speed bonus from 50% to 100%. And they have also fixed an issue where the upgrade names Gusting Winds, which is the speed upgrade, and Unending Winds, which is more spins, were swapped. So overall, Whirlwind has had quite a decent buff, and this could be good in arenas. I haven't yet tried it, but overall, rest of the stuff has stayed exactly the same for the Great Axe. Hatchet, we've just seen one quick change with the Hatchet here, and that is Berserking Purge. They have fixed an issue where this upgrade would not properly remove stuns if used too soon after the stun was applied. This is really crucial in arenas as, you know, popping the Berserk when you are getting absolutely chain CC'd and stunned and rendered is really good, and it can save you in a lot of situations. I've used it quite a bit. It is very good, and it is annoying when you're playing against it, so this works super well in that small scale, as well as will be really useful in that large scale PvP as well. Then we're moving on to the Ice Gauntlet here. We've got Ice Storm first, where they have fixed an issue that caused this ability to go down on cooldown when the spell was interrupted during aiming mode. This now doesn't work, which is great. Again, more consistent. Ice Pylon, we've seen the damage increased from 50% to 75% of weapon damage, and its health has been increased from 12% all the way up to 20% of the player health. This thing is something I have been running consistently in arenas and in the new mutations, and Ice Pylon honestly hits like a truck right now. It's a super good ability. People tend to ignore hitting it, particularly melee players, and of course in the expeditions, the mobs kind of ignore it in favour of the tank, so you can get extra DPS out a massive amount with 75% weapon damage. Really good ability and is super worthwhile taking in my opinion after these changes. And then finally, Ice Shower here, they have updated the tooltip for this ability to include the cooldown on the reapplication of the root effect, which is cool. Again, now people know exactly what is going on with it. Next here we are looking at the life staff. Firstly, they have fixed an issue with the light attacks cancelling healing target when sticky lock is enabled. They've also fixed an issue that caused targeted healing to attempt to lock onto targets beyond the range of healing spells. So obviously now if targets go out of range, which is about 100 to 110 meters, you won't actually lock onto them and, fail to attempt these casts. They've also cleaned up the animations and fixed missing visuals and sounds when self-healing, which is cool. It now makes more of an impact when you're actually using the abilities on yourself. Targeted heals, these abilities now allow movement while casting, similarly to Pillar of Fire with the Fire Staff then. So you can actually walk around while you're casting these things. We're looking at Splash of Light, Light's Embrace. Really, really cool addition. Light's Embrace here, they have increased the cast time to 1 second, and they've also reduced the bonus healing per buff from 30% down to 15%, so that is a pretty big hit. However, being able to move whilst doing this gives it a little buff. I don't actually think it warrants the amount of hit that it's taken, because it was one of the better healing abilities for single target healing. Particularly, I know they're looking at it from a 3v3 perspective, which is why I keep bringing up arenas. Particularly in there, 30% per buff would be pretty strong, and with the cooldown it has once you've got refreshing on there and such, and of course with the cast time being quite short. And I do think that as a result of that, healers have not been too overpowered in arenas. However, looking at things like PvE, wars, etc., this change could hit them a little bit harder and might be a little bit worse for wear, but we will have to see how that develops. Overall though, I do think healers are going to be a bit annoyed that it's such a cut. Maybe it could have gone to 20%, just a 10% cut. We'll have to see, and of course this could change before it's ultimately released towards the end of May, but for right now, that's what we're sitting on. Next then, moving into the musket, and this bad boy has seen a whole plethora of changes. Firstly, we've had some fixes. First one is they fixed a bug where the impact effects for the musket may have played even if the server invalidated the client's shot. So essentially you get the hit marker noise without actually hitting stuff. Now, the hit your mark passive, they've updated the description to clarify that this passive only works for standard musket shots and not for overloaded shots such as power shot or powder burn. Marksman passive fixed an issue where the overloaded shots would not count towards the number of consecutive hits. Now things like powder shot and powder burn will. Shooter's stance, they've fixed an issue where the musket would fire unintentionally in shooter's stance with the tactical reload passive. Sticky bomb, they have fixed an issue where the bomb would disappear without detonating when it attached to objects that were destroyed. And also with the sticky bomb, they have fixed an issue where the musket was not being removed from the player's hand for remote clients when holding a sticky bomb. So you now should actually be able to see when players have them in the hand. It's a little bit easier to avoid, particularly in PvP. For PvE, it's just going to be a more consistent thing to be able to see from the player's perspective and party members, etc. Powder burn then, they've fixed an issue where attempting to fire powder burn while prone would fire a power shot instead. Not sure why that was occurring, but it's now been fixed. Trap, they have cleaned up several visible aspects for better readability and effect matching, which is great for Trap because it means it should actually hit players more consistently when they're going within the hitbox of it. Finally, down the bottom here, they have increased the model size of traps in order to make them more visible and to match the size of the trigger volume. So the actual size of the trap is how much it will trigger. So if you walk on it, you will get hit. If you don't, you shouldn't now get hit. They've also updated the animation timing to match the trap's appearance and adjusted the projectile arc and speed to make throwing feel smoother and to make the trap land closer to the reticle position, which is again really good, making trap a much more consistent ability. Whether it's going to be something that more players pick up, maybe in arenas this could be really good, and in PvE I could see it being decent. but there is better things like Sticky Bomb is way better, I think, and I think that's what most people are going to be sticking with, pardon the pun, especially now that it has been increased in terms of its consistency. Now, the Rapier has just had a couple of ability changes. Firstly, we're looking at Tonda, where they have increased the bleed damage from 7% to 10% per tick. This puts it again in line with more things like the Fire Staff Burn, etc., and again has made this really, really good in the arenas, and again in the mutations, the extra bleed tick is really good. And also then we're looking at Riposte, where they have fixed an issue where Riposte could be triggered by abilities from the player that had AoE taunts active. So now it actually has to be direct attacks that trigger this, which makes a lot more sense and actually should be a relieving factor for anybody playing against the Rapier, as it was tending to trigger off other things that maybe shouldn't have triggered it before. So that should be a lot more consistent now, which is a good bonus. Next, we're looking at the Spear. Here, the first thing we've seen is the deadly consistency. They have fixed an issue where perks that deal extra damage, e.g. Keely Jagged and Chain, could reset the hit count for the passive. So again, this should now not be the case, which is good overall for consistency, and the Spear has been dominating again in the 3v3s and in the mutation, the new ones, because of course you've got all of the Rens and the bleeds, as well as the other debuffs it provides, and that's good for both obviously your expeditions and your PvP, but also in PvP you've got your CC, and this is a really good weapon overall for the arenas as well. So this is going to be a very, very popular choice going forward, and with that change it's going to be much more consistent. They've also increased hit shape sizes for basic attacks, Skewer, Perforate and Coupe de Grace, and also increased the homing on Coupe de Grace as well. Sword and Shield, they've simply changed Leaping Strike, and what they've done here is fixed an issue where this ability was triggering 2 stacks of the Blood Offering Mutator effect. So really it's only going to see a big difference in the mutations. However, it is worth noting this has been a formidable enemy in the arenas as well. So if you are a Sword and Shield player that wants to lean more towards DPS in the 3v3s, you're going to be doing pretty well. Now we're moving on to the Void Gauntlet. Here we can see that we've got Refreshing Frailty. They have added a 5 hit cap per attack on the cooldown reduction. The Refreshing Precision, they have reduced the cooldown reduction from 10% to 5% and added a 5 hit cap per attack on cooldown reduction again to this one. The Void Blade here, they have reduced the block stamina damage multiplier from Void Blade's heavy attacks from 2 down to 1.5, and they've increased Scream's root duration from 1 second back up to the 2 second that it was a couple of patches ago now. So the Scream is a little bit better for those roots, and again in arenas this has been really good, but again you're not getting your cooldowns quite as quickly as a result of the first 2 changes there. Now finally we're looking at the Warhammer here then, and this is specifically looking at Path of Destiny, and what they've done here is fixed an issue where the crits were not dealing increased damage. They have reduced the damage of non-crits from 110% damage down to 100% damage to account for the additional damage from crits. So particularly for those of us with Leeching Path of Destiny, and just in generally using this ability, we weren't getting that extra crit damage. Now we actually should be, which could mean that Leeching Path of Destiny is even better than before, and it was already really good. But of course we are going to see a 10% damage reduction by base damage. However, as most of you will know, with things like Keen Awareness on your jewelry, you're going to see critical hits fairly often with this weapon, and it is going to be super good that we can now get a little bit of damage boost, and in turn with Leeching Path of Destiny a little bit of a health regain boost as well. So overall I would say that is a buff. So that is going to be it for today's video, just covering the latest weapon balance changes and tunings from the May PTR notes. Now of course some of these may change before we get the May patch, at which point I will bring you guys an updated video when that drops, or indeed if we do get any additional ones before it drops as well, I'll bring you guys the updated news on that. But right now this is what stuff is looking like. That's what we're testing out in the PTR, and it is feeling fairly balanced overall, other than the little blunderbuss combo, which like I said, it can be countered, but it can be quite annoying as well. So maybe we'd like to see a couple changes there, but other than that we're looking pretty nice indeed. Maybe Life Staff needs a little buff after that Light's Embrace change, but again we'll have to wait and see to what that plays like in PvE and more in the wars as well. But other than that, that's going to be it for today guys. So if you have enjoyed this video, you've enjoyed me keeping you in the loop with all of the latest and greatest from New World, make sure you drop in a like and a subscribe down below, as both of those things massively help to support me and my content here on YouTube. If you do want to support me directly, you are able to join the channel memberships down below, or drop a super thanks in the comments if you do want to do so. But other than that, that's going to be it for today. So I'd like to thank you for your time, thank you for watching, and I will catch you again very shortly on a brand new upload. Take care and peace.